Order, order. We will unpause, and for His Majesty's official opposition, Shadow Minister Catherine West.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huck, and it's always a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I thank the Right Honourable and gallant member for Bournemouth East for securing this debate today and for the tone and the words which he used. Minimum requirement for members of Parliament to care. And I think that was very much summed up in his words. And also, we all enjoyed the story about his brother and the impact of his legacy, having lost him tragically like that in the Bali bombings. And the legacy of a teacher is always crucial, particularly in foreign policy. So I thank him very much for that. And really, since the fall of Kabul to the Taliban in that heartbreaking summer of 2021, the House has not often debated a more general government position on Afghanistan, and so this debate is timely, necessary and very welcome. The optics we all remember: a sunburnt member for Eshan and Walton lying on a sunbed in Corfu, an absent senior member of staff from the Foreign Office as Kabul fell. I don't think that's something any of us will ever forget. That feeling of a dereliction of duty, and certainly something which could not be levelled at the honourable member who's brought this debate today, but sadly that is definitely how I remember that period of time. And the most critical Foreign Affairs Select Committee report I have ever read into the way that the Foreign Office failed to support basic functions of a government at that crucial time, and I would give it as recommended reading to anybody who is interested in this area. And as Labour's Shadow Asia Minister, I want to begin by paying tribute also to the 457 British servicemen and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice during our engagement in Afghanistan, and the countless others who remained mentally or physically scarred by their service. Labour is and always will be in eternal debt and admiration of armed forces and the work they do in the most challenging of circumstances. War has untold consequences, and the war in Afghanistan, a 20-year multinational engagement, is among the conflicts with the most profound effect on our armed forces, veterans and our society that Britain has known for decades. Many people will still say that this effort came to failure when the Taliban retook Kabul that summer, and that's been reflected in today's debate. However, while true in many respects, I believe that simple statement does a disservice to the work of our armed forces, civil servants, development personnel, allies, and indeed Afghans themselves, who so clearly came together to transform Afghanistan during the 20 years of NATO involvement. The Afghanistan which the Taliban took control of in 2021 is a world away from the Afghanistan before Western forces first liberated from their control. 2 generations of children had access to education, business and the economy developed into an emerging economy. However, many of us, I think, would accept that not enough was done on the economy to ensure a lasting legacy. And women enjoyed many of the same rights and opportunities as their male friends and family members. Despite the changing government, much of that legacy is still alive. Afghans are more educated, more connected and more attuned to the world around them than the Taliban allowed them to be in the 1990s, and indeed some Taliban would wish them to be now, and we should hold on to and celebrate that legacy. But while doing so, we must also take stock of the Afghanistan of 2024, not the Afghanistan of 2021. Women's rights have been essentially eliminated. The economy is in a dire situation. Malnutrition and famine are the reality for millions, and all vestiges of a Taliban 2.0 have been proven to be false, with human and civil rights not even considered by the power brokers in Kandahar. We cannot simply pretend that this is the way it should be, and no British, Western or indeed neighbouring country should forgive the treatment by the Taliban of the Afghan people, and particularly, as the member for North East Fife has talked about, for women and girls. By doing so, the collective legacy we left behind, that more hopeful Afghanistan, which many worked so hard to create, and which I firmly believe exists there, certainly if my emails from Afghan people are to be believed, that spirit and resilience will continue. But we must come up with a strategy now to deal with Afghanistan, a country of 40 million people which has been all but shut off from the world, bar occasional references to the humanitarian crisis unfolding. The question is an emotive and controversial one for obvious and deeply held reasons, but we owe it to Afghans to have this conversation. My right honourable friend, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, became the first senior British politician to visit Afghanistan since the return of the Taliban in June 2022, and demanded then that the UK set out a comprehensive strategy for re-engaging with Afghanistan to help support the people we have left behind. Despite his demands, very little appears to have changed. I wonder if the Minister would outline what conditions he believes would be the basic minimum for us to re-engage again. For example, what has been mentioned about the debate today, freedom of religion or belief, basics around human rights safeguarding, basics around treatment of women. What are those basics which we believe should be upheld in advance of a genuine restart on a mission there, a UK mission there? Could the Minister please outline that long-term thinking? I'd also urge the Minister to use this opportunity to outline what further humanitarian response the UK will provide to the people of Afghanistan. It has been mentioned today in the debate, 100 million, that's a very small amount compared to what was spent previously, but also much less than what is desperately needed. And indeed, I would also urge the Minister to outline what the government's doing to support at-risk Afghans who face deportation from Pakistan to Afghanistan. Could he say a little bit about cross-departmental work between the FCDO, the Defence Department and the Home Office, interesting threesome, to make sure that the applicants who we've heard from via their MPs today, for example, the member for Glasgow Central, and indeed my own constituents who are very much stuck on the border of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and it really was only when Pakistan decided to start deporting people back to Afghanistan that the international community has restarted the process of applications. I understand there's 100 applicants still outstanding that the British Council is aware of, for example. Could he say on the domestic front what's happening with that? Many thousands of former armed forces, civil servants and civil society activists the UK supported remain in danger. We've been woefully slow in supporting them. I firmly believe that no one in this House will support a full recognition of the Taliban, but there's space for a pragmatic, measured and reasonable middle ground to ensure we are there for the people of Afghanistan. Cutting them off forevermore is not what thousands of British, Allied and Afghan forces fought and died for. In concluding, Dr. Huck, I just have a couple of points that came out of the debate. I've mentioned the one about the domestic element to this. I wonder if the Minister would say a little bit about the threat of radicalisation. Does he feel that that is still as serious as it was, particularly given some of the lack of stability in Pakistan? Secondly, what budgetary implications his strategy might have, because, as I said before, the 100 million does not seem to be as much as maybe what is required. But if he were to do that, what would he have to cut in order to put in place more funding? And would he agree with me that the BBC World Service is really well placed to provide educational programs such as bite-sized learning, which is what was so effective during the pandemic, and which I'm sure with our language experts at the BBC World Service, we could put in place some wonderful programs for women stuck at home, not even able to go out and do a basic bureaucratic task without having to be accompanied by their brother or husband. And also his assessment of the current picture around corruption. Would more money simply be at risk of corruption? And finally, could I just finish again by thanking the member for Bournemouth East for bringing this debate, for caring, and also for giving us a lesson in the dangers of groupthink. Thank you, Dr. Huck.